Hi there. Welcome to WMRCC's Youth Leadership Training Workshop. We're going to get straight into it because we do have a lot we want to cover today. And just to let you know, this training session is an initiative that's part of the second year of our project, Challenge Racism, What to Do Steps. We're going to tell you a little bit more about this work and how you can use it in your everyday life to be an advocate for change. And before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the financial support from the Department of Canadian Heritage Anti-Racism Action Program. Without this funding, this project would not be possible. I'm going to go over a quick agenda for today. So we're going to start with a quick introduction, telling you a little bit about the project, who we are, and what you can expect from today's workshop. After the introduction, we have a 20-minute presentation where we'll explore the ways you can be a young leader on a micro, meso, and macro level in the areas of challenging racism, discrimination, gender-based inequality, and promoting inclusiveness in workplaces and institutions within your community. Following that, we're going to just wrap up and check out. And the goal of our workshop today is that it serves as a space for you to connect with the resources and tools you need in dismantling systemic racism and oppression and finding creative new ways of being an advocate for change in your community.
WMRCC acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which our organization is located. Today, Durham Region is home to many Indigenous peoples from all across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that Durham Region forms a part of the traditional territory and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississaugas peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we work and live. It is important that we acknowledge the distinct legacy of colonial violence and genocide and take the time to learn the stories of the true knowledge keepers of the land we call home. So, what is the Challenge Racism Project? The Challenge Racism Project is an initiative aiming to address barriers to employment for members of equity deserving groups, racialized, ethnocultural, religious, and 2S LGBTQ plus groups in Durham Region. In the first year of the project, WMRCC worked with employers to deepen our understanding of their HR policies, practices, and procedures that attract and retain underrepresented talent. We then shared these findings with various diverse community groups and organizations to gain feedback, opinions, and experiences regarding barriers to employment. Finally, WMRCC met again with community groups and organizations and employers to come up with collective recommendations for addressing barriers to employment. We're now in the second year of the project where we are putting forward these recommendations through our Challenge Racism Project app and booklet. The booklet and app are now available for download, and we will be sharing the link to these at some point during the presentation and for you to have with you afterwards as well. Upon completion of the project, we expect to see an increase in resources, campaigns, and services which address barriers to employment for equity deserving groups, and an increase in community insights and data on employment barriers experienced by equity seeking groups in the region.
So we're just going to briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Norali, and I'm a project coordinator here at WMRCC working on the Challenge Racism Initiative. I've been working in community engagement for the last 3 years, initially involved in the Scarborough community and now heavily involved in the Durham community through my work here at WMRCC. And through my past work experience, I've led mentorship initiatives for students, implemented educational and social programming, as well as conducted research. And outside of my professional work, I like to read, practice yoga, and be outdoors.
Hi, my name is Adeline Angrove, and I'm also a project coordinator for the Anti-Racism Action Program Challenge Racism Project. I am based in Ajax. I have a social service worker diploma, and for the past 10 years, I have worked with vulnerable populations such as children and adults with special needs and children in care. And I also have a background in photography. I'm a second generation Chinese Canadian, a xennial, which is on the cusp of Gen X and millennial. I am a female, a Christian, and able-bodied. I'm a wife and a mother. Other facts about me is that this winter I learned how to downhill ski, and I love cats.
So now we're just going to jump straight into the presentation portion of the workshop. And our presentation is on how to equip and empower yourself to be an activist against discrimination and racism in employment.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Here is a quote that many of you may have already heard before. How simple yet profound it is. We can't control how others behave or what they do. We can only control ourselves. So be the change you want to see in the world on a micro, meso, and macro level. Activism comes in different forms and is not just about protesting. Other forms of activism include self-reflection, identifying racism, education, whether it's educating yourself and or others, becoming an ally. Activism is equipping and empowering yourself to be the change you want to see in the world and leading by example in your circles of influence.
So we're going to start at the micro level, looking at what you can do on an individual level to implement change. And what micro level changes really look like are changes in your behavior, personal behaviors, and lifestyle. So here I'm going to go through several ways that you can equip yourself to be an activist on a micro level, starting with knowing your rights. So in the Challenge Racism booklet and app, there are links to the Ontario Human Rights Commission, articles, and the Durham Community Legal Clinic. These are some excellent resources to equip yourself with knowledge and know where to find answers and information pertaining to the rights that you have. Next is have a mentor, role model, or sponsor. So I want to share a quotation which summarizes the importance of mentorship. Mentoring and sponsorship provide opportunities for networking, skill development. It can provide insights, leads, and/or advice. Your network can include both personal, professional, social, and cultural contacts, such as family, friends, neighbors, associates, former coworkers, former employers, and educational institutions, professional associations, tutors, religious, or cultural groups you are a member of. This quote highlights the ways in which mentorship can be a formal arrangement through a partnership or a program initiative, but how it can also be informal and exist through the everyday relationships that we have with the people that we interact with frequently. So think about the people in your life who have provided opportunities for you through networking, skills development, the people who guide you through your career development and who are invested in your growth. Some of the mentors that you have do not have to be through formal mentorship programs. It could be a role model that you have, a teacher or a parent. Next, we have carefully researching prospective employers. So on page 21 of the Challenge Racism booklet, we have a link to an article from Indeed titled How to Research a Company, specifically pertaining to researching employers during the job search process. So some of the points listed in the article include looking for companies that share your values, researching employee benefits at the company, researching the company's leadership, asking your network for opinions. And based on the points that are listed in this article, it's safe to say that when you're looking for work, it's important that the organization you are applying for or choosing to work for aligns with your values and mission. And using these tactics to research the organization would be helpful in scoping out whether its mission aligns with yours. Next, we have building your skills through a resume and volunteering. So building a resume is more than just a piece of paper with words on it. It's building your experience first, then putting it on paper, and a good way to start building your resume and skills is through volunteering. Volunteering is a good way to learn, prepare, and gain the experience that you need to set yourself up and position yourself for greater success. And you can also use your volunteer experience to get an entry-level position in order to get your foot in the door. And if you're looking to gain skills, a great place to start is to look for the organizations and groups that you envision yourself working for and start there as a volunteer to familiarize yourself with the organization, gain new skills, and make connections. This gives you a great opportunity to network and explore the kind of work that you see yourself doing. So something to think about is what volunteer work are you currently partaking in or have you in the past? And what led you to that kind of work that you chose to do? Next, we have having a financial plan and learning financial literacy. So one of the conversations that took place during a focus group discussion in year 1 of the project was a sensitive conversation about the impacts of intergenerational poverty, where immigrant parents did not have the knowledge to share with their children. Intergenerational knowledge was not received, especially if they themselves lived in intergenerational poverty, in this case referring to knowledge of finances and navigating finances. Whether intergenerational poverty affects you personally or not, having financial literacy is key in taking control of your financial situation and really setting yourself up for a future of success and financial health and well-being. According to the MOCA app, two-thirds of Canadian millennials do not have an emergency fund set up yet, and 60% haven't started investing. This goes to show that we need to be able to bridge the gap and encourage conversations around finances from an early age. And before I go ahead and share some of the strategies, I want to note that what we're sharing here is not financial advice, and really what we want to do here is bring attention to the different tools, strategies, and resources that you can consider exploring yourself. So some financial planning and setting strategies include budgeting for the basic necessities of life, including food, clothing, shelter, transportation, utilities, and bills, saving for a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, saving and investing in education and RESPs for yourself or your kids or your future kids, tax-free savings accounts, mutual funds, and finding a trustworthy financial advisor. And all of this planning does start as early as possible, so to set yourself up with a measurable plan to position yourself for success, a design for living. And always remember that it's not too late to start. Next, we have download the WMRCC Challenge Racism app and booklet. And so a lot of our presentation here is based off of the content from there, but you can go to wmrcc.org to access that booklet and app for more information. And finally, the last thing that you can do for yourself on a micro level or on an individual level is self-care. So in doing any work that is considered a form of activism or centered on serving the community and people, it's very likely that you may experience burnout and exhaustion if you don't set boundaries for yourself and take intentional care of yourself. Self-care looks very different to many people, and oftentimes in our culture, self-care is sold and branded through material things, but really it can look like cleaning up your spaces, taking the time to meditate or journal, or connect with friends. I also want to add here the importance of self-awareness as essential in being a great leader. So there's a quote here from an HR company called Inspiretti. Self-awareness is an essential trait of being a great leader. By knowing your values, personality, needs, habits, and emotions, and how they affect your actions and the actions of others, you'll be better able to manage your stress, make better decisions, and ultimately lead others to do the same. And so the key message here is that you need to be able to help yourself in order to help others. So think about some of the self-care practices that you have.
So here we have the meso level. Meso level is parts of society, groups, organizations, such as school, communities, church groups, and neighborhoods. These organizations and groups that you're involved with are part of the meso level. So here we're going to explore what's next after you've gotten your foot in the door of an organization. How can you be an activist against discrimination and racism in the organizations and groups that you're a part of? Now we want to go over some tips that you can apply at the MESA level, which can advance your diversity and inclusion principles within the work that you do. We've broken it down into two sections here: internally, or within the organizations you're a part of, and externally. These tips that we're sharing with you actually come from the research that was conducted through the Challenge Racism Project through consultations with different community organizations, groups, and employers. So internally, within the organization, one of the tips is create safe spaces or mentoring circles. Employee resource groups are one option. These are voluntary groups that bring together employees who share a common identity, interest, or characteristic to build community. Mentoring circles is a variation of the employee resource group, and it is a peer-to-peer format group. This group enables employees to connect with coworkers who have different backgrounds than themselves. Through this network, employees share experiences as a group to gain better understanding of interactions within the organization. This is something you could think about starting within your own organization, whether it be formally or informally, or if it already exists within your organization, you can consider joining it. Tip 2 is identify gaps within your organization and eliminate barriers. According to the Ontario Human Rights Commission, if harassment happens at work, you can speak to human resources, tell a manager, or contact your union representative. If none of these options improve your situation, or you are afraid of taking these steps, you can also file a formal human rights complaint called an application with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. Other tips are cross-enterprise networking with peers and senior leaders, collaborate with community organizations. Another tip is be the organization. Consider job creation opportunities such as self-employment and entrepreneurship to navigate the limited job market. We'll leave you with these options, which we derived from our research through the Challenge Racism Project. However, we want to note that there is more that you may consider doing within the organizations you're a part of outside of these points. A lot of the time, what we do at the MESA level really does start with the micro level. So go back to the things you may have learned and practiced on an individual level and bring that to the organizations that you work with to really create collective change towards more diverse and inclusive workplaces.
And finally, here we're going to look at the macro level, which is society as a whole, considering political, economic, and social factors. So there's elements to the macro level. Excuse me. Political, economic, and social. At the political level, we have politics, policies, and our elected officials. It's important for us to know who's in our community and their roles and responsibility. Who in our community is representing us? Do their values and agenda match our community's agenda and values? Getting to know who your local representatives are is important as it allows you to be involved and engaged with how the political sphere affects your livelihood. There are a lot of opportunities to engage with them and voice your concerns, such as writing in or calling to express your views, volunteering for their office, or even simply engaging through their social media to show support. We're actually going to go over the political figures in Durham Region and beyond in a few slides. Next, we have economic factors. So the economy is a huge factor at play at the macro level. This includes the national and global companies and organizations. Familiarizing yourself with these large companies and organizations and their diversity, equity, and inclusion policies is helpful in that it shows you what values and missions they have and whether these values and missions reflect your own and societies as a whole. And finally, we have social factors, which consist of cultures, subcultures, class, group, family, education, religion. And social factors are what influence behavior and lifestyle, and these trends often dictate the social standing of communities all over the world. And while creating change at the macro level feels like something that can be out of reach, many times it is closely within our reach based on our ability to take certain actions. So working collectively to change one element of society in turn affects another and another, and that's really how change happens. It starts with the power of yourself and expanding those micro level changes to a wider scale.
In the following slides, we will show you the different levels of government and talk about the roles and responsibilities. On this slide, we have Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is Canada's 23rd Prime Minister. In Canada, executive authority is vested in the Crown and carried out by the Governor and Council, the Prime Minister and Cabinet. Once appointed, the Prime Minister selects a number of confidential advisors. Collectively, they are known as the Ministry or Cabinet, and each are responsible for individual portfolios or departments. We also have Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. The leader of the political party with the largest number of elected members is called the Premier. The Premier is the head of the provincial government and is responsible for working with the cabinet ministers to develop policies and set priorities for the government. We also have the regional chair of Durham Region, John Henry. The regional chair is both the head of council and the chief executive officer of the region, which is also known as the CEO. The regional chair is responsible for introducing motions and voting on items during committee meetings, opening and chairing Durham Region Council meetings, declaring emergencies under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, serving as a member of all regional communities, serving on the Durham Regional Police Services Board, and as Chief Executive Officer of the Durham Region Transit Commission, providing leadership, information, and recommendations to Council, acting as the primary speaker on public issues, and acting as Durham Region's representative within and outside of the municipality, acting as the head of the institution under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, fostering public interest and involvement in the region and its activities, promoting Durham Region locally, nationally, and internationally. And we also have the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. The chief, Kelly LaRocca, is the official spokesperson of the First Nation. And is required to attend meetings with local, federal, and provincial counterparts. And on the next slide, we have the municipal government. In the following slides, we will show you the different levels of government for the 8 municipalities in Durham Region and go over the roles and responsibilities. There are 444 municipalities in Ontario, all of which play an important role in providing and delivering programs and services to meet the needs of their residents. In Durham Region, we have 8 municipalities, which is Ajax, Brock, Clarington, Oshawa, City of Pickering, Scugog, Uxbridge, and Whitby. The next municipal elections will be held on Monday, October 24th of 2022. The provincial governments are responsible for laws and programs related to natural resources and environment, hospitals, education, property and civil rights in the province, administration of justice, social services, and the province directly funds or transfers money to institutions to ensure the delivery of these important responsibilities, as well as provincial highways, culture and tourism, prisons, post-secondary education, and other services to Ontarians. The federal government has the power to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Canada. Among the many exclusive powers of the federal government are regulation of trade and commerce, the post office, the census, national defense, employment insurance, money and banking, copyrights, criminal law, citizenship, foreign policies. So once appointed, the Prime Minister selects a number of confidential advisors, usually from among the members of the governing party who are made members of the Privy Council and sworn in as members. Collectively, they are known as the Ministry or Cabinet. The Cabinet is the key decision-making forum in the federal government, responsible for its administration and the establishment of its policy. There are 39 ministers. Pictured here is the Honorable Ahmed Hussein, who is Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. The Honorable Marcy Ian, who is Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Youth. The Honorable Carla Qualtrough, who is Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion. Also, the Honorable Mark Holland, also known as the MP for Ajax, not pictured on this slide, but on an earlier slide, he is serving on the cabinet as leader of the government in the House of Commons. This may seem like a lot of information, and again, we will be providing you with this information that you can refer back to after the presentation. So the takeaway is to know who's who in your community and what they are responsible for. They may seem far out of reach or just a face you may see on the news or on screen, but their offices are close by in your neighborhoods, possibly even a short walk away. We encourage you to get involved in your community. At the municipal level, residents can help advise council by applying to sit on a variety of advisory committees and boards. Or at the provincial level, get in touch with your MPP. You can even watch the Legislative House proceedings live from the public galleries at Legislative Assembly located in downtown Toronto. On this note, I will hand it over back to Norelli.
Thank you. And to wrap up the presentation today, we want to leave you with this simple yet powerful quote. It starts with an individual's will to change.